Hello, world! It's me, Eire, with Saturn's Edge, and you're watching more Persona 3 Reload! We left off on a cliffhanger last time, and what we're doing now is our full moon operation for July. This is a big deal. We haven't had a full moon operation in, ooh, how long, man? It's been a long time, actually. It's been over 10 episodes, I'd say. Maybe a little under? I'm not sure. Actually, no, it's been over 10 episodes since then. But now we're on to the big thing. Here we are at a love hotel on Shirakawa Boulevard. And we have got to find out who is causing all of these issues.
Hey there.
What we know is that a lot of pairs are going unconscious, and they're ending up in various locations. But for the most part, it's specifically pairs or couples that does it near this location. So we might be able to catch on to something here. I already know ahead of time, because I already did my research. And I played the game, so, you know. There's your little tidbit. I already know what's going on. You don't. But you will in just a moment. The Hierophant's Chamber. That's weird. Large presence behind the door. Yeah, I'm ready. This right here.
The boss? It's more normal looking than I expected.
Yeah, you could say it's normal until you realize that its chair is alive. I love this music. This is the Hierophant. First off, what is a Hierophant? This is a person who brings religious congregants into the presence of that which is deemed holy. They're an interpreter of sacred mysteries and arcane principles. This is by Wikipedia, so you know, their definition is definitely right. Now, the Hierophant does appear in tarot cards. So, what does that mean, right? Well, the Hierophant, being somewhat religious, is kind of like a connection between God and man. It's kind of like the little figure in the card that brings the connection between the two. It can also represent tradition, social groups, conventionality, there we go. Conformity, education, knowledge, beliefs, a variety of things that all make sense, but it's important to note that there is a connection between God and man, and that's what the Hierophant is meant to be. However, this Hierophant, the Arcana Shadow, much like any full moon operation boss, they all represent the reverse version of this card. So, for example, you have rebellion, unconventionality, nonconformity, new methods, ignorance. That's a big one. But the more literal thing that we're getting here, rather than all those keywords, is something very interesting and really cool that I prefer. Instead, using his connection between God and man as a sort of abusive relationship, a misuse of it. There are two figures in front of him who look to be people, but because of their stance, they also look like crosses. So you could see this as them being crucified. There's a red rose and a black, I don't know what that is on it. But these two, I'm not sure what those designs actually mean on them. I really don't. Another thing to note is that this Hierophant, rather than standing up, is instead sitting down. Very large, very small, actually. Very, heavy looking, basically, in the middle. You're also going to note a couple things. First off, his chair. His chair has tights and heels on it, indicating some sort of, some sexual undertones there, really. Kind of a misuse of it to cover up for, sexual misconduct, I should say. Especially in a, position like that. The other thing to note, which you'll see in a second whenever you, look back at the boss, is something that I think is amazing, okay? This is something I didn't pick up on until I really looked at the design. That thing behind him is both meant to be a chair, like part of the chair, like the back of the chair, and also just a woman. Just straight up a woman. Now, the sign of the Hierophant is a triple cross, and you can see that there is a cross for her head, except it's all contorted. It's very twisted and bending, as if he's bending the rules to make this seem legit. Another thing to note is that the woman is over him, but he is over the people, indicating levels of kind of a mix of like a, what's the word I'm hearing? Power, that's the word. There's a hierarchy here. She convinces him to do the things, he's the spokesperson, he convinces his little minions to do whatever, basically. This is all one boss. These are not separate things you can pick out. So when you attack one, you attack them all. It's really interesting. On top of that, one thing I like noting is that on his little, I don't know what that is, loincloth, that cloth part there are 2 keys. One blue key, one pink key. Indicating a, specifically advocating for, what is it? Like straight relationships or straight marriages. But also, he's advocating for this while also, he's a religious official that's married, which, while that's more common nowadays in a lot of religions, for something like a different religion where you're not supposed to be married at all, which he's more garbed to be like, he's more dressed in clothes that are more representative of a religion where you can't marry if you're in a position of power. Yeah, there's a lot going on here. Future Eire here, editor's note here, this is important. Those keys on his loincloth, those are St. Peter's keys. Those are the keys to heaven. I did not know that because I'm not religious. So I feel like it's important to point this out here as kind of a little note between things. Sorry about the little break here, but you know what? It's important. And you know what? I love it. I think that the different levels of design here really stand out. They make him seem really interesting. However, there's another thing here. What's his gimmick? Right? We've had previous bosses with a gimmick. You know what his gimmick is? You just saw it. Right there. Doomsday Doctrine. Doomsday Doctrine is pretty funny. It sucks, but it's funny. His signature move, Doomsday Doctrine, is simply this. High chance of afflicting the fear condition on the whole party. That's it. Now, why would he have that? Well, we've already talked about how he has, like, multiple levels to power, and he abuses that power. He misuses it. He intentionally makes the people afraid to follow him. That's why he's got these 2 little supporters by him. He's intentionally using his position of power, his position where he's a connecting piece between God and man, to basically inform the people of disaster, of ruin, of really any bad thing that could ever happen, in an attempt to make himself even more powerful because they're going to listen to him. They believe him. I love this. It's layers of manipulation in this boss's design that make it really cool. Like, there's a lot of symbolism here. And if you really look at the design, the symbolism works and it makes sense. It's really solid, and I believe it fully. Another thing to note is that I think this is a cool fact that I found out a while back. Doomsday Doctrine was originally called Prophecy of Ruin. Personally, I would have preferred Prophecy of Ruin, because, you know, that just sounds better. But Doomsday Doctrine is alliteration, and that's kind of funny. And hearing a move like Doomsday Doctrine out of a boss fight is kind of funny, and I gotta admit, it's enjoyable. It really is. Now, there's a couple more little notes that I just haven't said yet. I noted the larger figure on the Hierophant. This is supposed to be indulgence. It's supposed to be, like a sort of, indulgence, like a gluttony, a greed of something. And most likely, because of the chair and the woman, it's of a sexual nature. There's the undertones there. And another thing to note is that crosses are typically straight, and they're kind of meant to be like rules and vows and a ton of other important things, especially in religion. It being bent refers to the way that he bends the rules and bends vows and bends however he bends whatever he pleases, both because of his position and because of him, like, his overindulgence. I I just love it. It's a really unique boss design that I wish I spent more time with. I wish there was more of a build-up to this guy. I wish that the priestess had more of a build-up. The high priestess, I mean. The one with the train car. I wish that had a better build-up. The Emperor and Empress had a pretty solid build-up, but I wish they got a little bit more, right? The magician, the shadow made of all those hands that died instantly, definitely needed more screen time. The Hierophant here, I believe, also needs more build-up, as he's such an interesting, like, boss, both in design and in nature. And it pairs really well, both design and concept, to what the Full Moon Operations bosses do. They manipulate, they overpower, they do all of this stuff to ruin people, like to absolutely just murder them for their own personal gain. Gain. The magician kills relentlessly. It attacks without thought. The priestess specifically set up a conflicting problem using a train car, where you're stuck on rails, and anyone that's in the next train car is also getting hurt. Emperor and Empress manipulate people to come to their domain, get hurt. Him, it's very specific what his is. Manipulate people into being afraid. This is so simple, yet so effective. Especially, you know, with his arcana, his design, the references, the symbolism. All of it connects together to create this really just enjoyable boss conceptually. I gotta admit, this fight isn't a lot, and there is no build-up for him. There really isn't. There isn't talk of people being afraid of, like, a doomsday, you know? But this works. I like this the way it is, and I wish it got more. Also, I like the death animation. Falls back in the chair, everyone's dead there. Love it. I think it's really solid. I really do. It's such a solid, like, death animation where he falls back with the chair and all of it falls over. I just love it. You can see this was really a chance for me to nerd out after doing some research and really get to enjoy myself on something I just like doing. But something seems off here, right? I mean, considering our levels, 26, I mean, 26 isn't all that high. We didn't use a lot of items. We didn't do much of anything. And we can't head back outside. That's weird. There's a shadow in the room. But where's the shadow?
Hey.
It's not the same one as before, so where could it be? Well, I looked around the room just from a quick glance. That mirror looks pretty weird. There's something off about that mirror. I'm gonna be real, okay? I loved the music for this place, I really did. But, and I hate this scene a lot, I just don't like it as much. It doesn't really provide anything as a cutscene. I just think it's really awkward and fan servicey. I just don't like it. This part I like, because it's interesting. It does something interesting here. And it has a little couple cool details to it as well. Now, I want to have a real talk here. When it comes to games, right, and some games like this especially, Persona is a prime example of this. Sometimes there are games that have a character, or a location, or something
That which cannot be felt is merely
that have,
a dream.
like,
The present is all
sexual undertones, and I'm not comfortable with that. It's not because of any personal reason, nothing that happened in my history, it's just I'm not comfortable with it. It's always unsettling when it's done right, and a lot of the times, Persona does it right. And I think Persona did it right here, with the Love Hotel. It's very simple. The setting is nothing more than just an empty-ish love hotel, and there are little things you can find about it. But it does create, like, a little bit of an unsettling aura to me, because it just seems too, like, out of my league, you know, out of my world.
Such is your wish. Pleasure is what you truly seek. You stand before the doorway to bliss. You cannot deny your instincts.
No, I don't.
Embrace your desire.
I don't stand before the doorway to bliss. That's not real. I'll pass. Seems like something was trying to manipulate my thoughts. Now, again, the scene is awkward and I hate it. But this leads into one of, like, the most interesting sorts of details that I managed to pick up from research, okay?
I can finally reach you.
What's important here is that Yukari signed up for this mission. You cannot, like, not work with her.
The shadow was interfering with your
So,
quest.
this cutscene is inevitable, okay?
Looks like
It
you
just
two have
has to
broken
happen.
away as well. The group's all been separated. The enemy is still in the same room. Let's regroup.
Shadow
and
that
head
can
back
jam
there.
communication systems through
Did you
manipulation.
hear that,
Interesting.
Haru-chan?
Yeah, I heard you.
Did something happen?
It's fine.
Come on, let's go. And how
Anyway.
about we don't mention this to anyone? Got it?
So,
Sorry.
what's important here is this. What makes this interesting. There are a couple little details you wouldn't pick up unless you did a repeat playthrough and did stuff differently. For example, I picked my party to be Akihiko and Mitsuru. I'm not counting Yukari because she signed up for this. Akihiko and Mitsuru get paired up for this, as you're gonna see in 1 second. Okay, maybe more than 1 second. Maybe like 5 seconds. There we go. So they got paired up. You could freely choose to not choose Akihiko and instead choose Junpei. Same thing happens. You could choose Junpei and Akihiko if you so choose, if you did. And oddly enough, they get paired up too. They would never describe what happens, and you never know what happens. If you were playing Persona 3 Portable, and you chose the girl character, you'd automatically get paired up with Akihiko. If he wasn't in your party, you'd get paired up with Junpei. Remember, there's only 5 characters, and Yukari automatically signs up no matter what. These are interesting details that I like,
I'm sorry.
because it requires you to do a repeat playthrough to actually see how these play out. Now, the way that the story goes after this point, I'm really glad I chose the characters that I did, because it actually fits in insanely well. And I think they were intending for us to choose it in this setup. Looks like that person was chilling on the couch in that coffin. Wait, that's weird. Yeah, this mirror shows our reflection. But no, the shape is different. I see ghosts in this one! That actually would have been funny.
Is that right?
Damn it, I should have chose that one. That would have been such a good choice if I just said the mirrors had ghosts in them. But point is, we know real mirrors have reflections in them, so why do some of these mirrors not have reflections in them at all? So, here's our chance. Now we get to look around and figure out what's the deal with these mirrors. Okay, so the mirrors are connected to the seal that is currently locking us in, which is really interesting. And I really like how this is set up and how all the pieces, like, somewhat connect together, because it creates a really unique and interesting idea and a dynamic, not just between, like, the story and, like, how these things work, but instead it creates an interesting dynamic between the shadow bosses. The Magician was alone. The High Priestess was alone. The Emperor and the Empress were together, but they were paired up for very obvious reasons. Which is, they would both manipulate and take down a target, they could cover each other's weaknesses, they could shift each other's weaknesses. It worked perfectly. So, what about the Hierophant? And now, this boss that we didn't know was around. This shadow that we didn't sense until it was too late. What's their dynamic? Well, I'll tell you one thing. You're gonna have to see that in the next episode. Because that is what I'm gonna be talking about for a portion of the next episode. Because I think it's really unique how it all comes together. You don't really see that dynamic between enemies at all. And it never gets explicitly told to you. That's the big key here. None of this is explicitly told to you. Also, I kind of find this funny. I like the fact that you can enter a room and it's insanely awkward that there's just two coffins on the bed. Because that's the joke that they would make. I think it's like a terrible joke. But also, like, it's awkward, kinda gross, and kind of funny. It's not because, like, oh, sex is funny. But it's more of, like, the fact, like, oh, they put this here. They wanted you to know this was, like, literally in the middle of the night. I think it adds, like, kind of a cool, like, world-building aspect to this. In kind of a weird way, you know? Like, it makes me feel like we're actually at a love hotel. A place that is usually occupied by guests at night. That just makes more sense to me. This is the worst one. I honestly think that that was the worst one they could have put in here.
Amazing.
All right.
I don't want to say what the joke with that mirror... not the mirror. I don't want to say what the joke with those coffins was. Because, one, I think that if you're old enough, you should know what it is. And two, you could probably infer it. But three, there might be kids watching and shit, and I don't want to bring that up, you know? But, now that we've done that, we can move on to something bigger in the next episode. A cliffhanger into another cliffhanger. I know, it sucks. But, I've been Eire with Saturn's Edge. You've been watching Persona 3 Reload. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share it with your friends, alright? And I'll see you all around in the next episode. See ya!